Greetings and salutations, everyone. I hope everyone is still doing well, and welcome to today's bonus. A bonus that gets us that much closer to Saturday Nightmares live from New York, our live stream at 12 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. I hope to see you all there. Before we jump into this bonus, though, a couple links. As many of you know, I rely on Patreon, PayPal, channel membership, and the merch to help the channel to continue to grow and go. Links to Patreon, PayPal, and channel membership is in the description below. Merch displayed directly under the video. Also, Dogman Frightening Encounters, Volume 1 through 3, the audiobook versions. They were written and researched by Tom Lyons, narrated and produced by me, Jeff Nadolny. Those audiobooks are available on Audible, Amazon, and iTunes, links to which are also in the description as well. And finally, last but definitely not least, if you'd really like to help support the channel to continue to grow and go, simply subscribe. It does not cost you a cent. Click the like button, takes half a second. If you don't want to miss out on any of the informative uploads I put out daily, click that bell icon, and folks, please leave a comment. Why? Well, because all of these things really do help the channel to continue to grow and go. And yes, folks, they definitely do matter. Now, everyone, I have taken far too much of your time. Let's jump in to today's bonus, shall we? Although it's been several years, I'm positive of the date because my family and I were returning from a funeral in Nagadushis. We were heading to my parents' house in Crockett on State Highway 21. Under normal circumstances, I would have taken Highway 7 as it's a much better road. But it had been raining all week, over 9 inches on that day alone, and the roads were washed out everywhere. A family member at the funeral had assured me that the drainage on 21 was much better than 7, and I didn't want to risk getting stranded or washed away. So I followed the advice, and as it turned out, we made it to our destination, albeit later than expected. I also was not expecting what I saw on the way. As I said, it had been raining for days, and it was pouring rain for most of the entire drive. The area along Highway 21 is very rural and very dark at night, because it's mostly farmland with homesteads set far out and away from the highway. The traffic that night was all but non-existent, fortunately, because it was difficult to see well with it raining so hard. I was driving slowly with my low beams because the rain was all I could see with the lights on high. So I had my nose to the windshield, just trying to stay on the road. Just before you enter Davy Crockett National Forest, you come upon the Cato Mounds State Historic Site, which are ancient burial mounds on either side of the road. Right near the entrance to the site and almost in the roadway were 4 white-tailed deer behaving very erratically. I came to a full stop, thankful that I had seen them before I'd hit one. It was as if they weren't sure where to go. It looked like they were in a hurry to be somewhere, but didn't want to get split up. One would dart one direction, and the others would follow, only to stop and change direction again. They seemed to be oblivious to everything around them. I eased past them as quickly as I could because one almost ran into the side of my car. My wife, who was up front in the passenger seat, said that was odd. My son was sitting in the middle of the back seat between his 2 sisters. He came to attention when I stopped. Wanted to see what was going on. I asked them both to help me watch for more deer because hitting one would have been a disaster in a downpour. My son asked me what deer are doing out in the rain instead of seeking cover. At the instant that I was about to answer, we were now inside the Davy Crockett National Forest and nearing the Neach River. Something ran out in front of the car on 2 legs, from right to left. My headlights illuminated the lower half of its body, but I could see a silhouette of the upper body as it ran. It was absolutely enormous. It happened very quickly, so quickly that I didn't have time to brake. The strides were long, so long that I don't think its feet hit the pavement more than twice. I remember that the legs were covered with dark hair and it seemed to have no ankles. The thickness of the legs were consistent all the way down to its feet. My son immediately turned around to get a better look and exclaimed, "What is that?" I said, "I don't know, and I don't wish to know." We discussed it with each other during the remainder of the trip and with my parents the next day. No one had ever heard of anything like that in that area. Most everyone I told it to believed that the rain had obscured our vision, and that it was probably a buck looking for deer that we passed back down on the road. I know what I saw. Deer are not as fast as what crossed the highway that night, and they don't run on two legs. Today's second encounter of the evening. According to one Ottawa County resident, a creature fitting the description of a dogman appeared in Grand Haven from 93 to 1994. Ben, who was a younger teenager at the time, claims to have seen the creature not once but 3 times. He believes each time he was seeing a different creature, in what could have been a pack taking refuge in Grand Haven Township Park. In 1993, after dark, Ben was hiking the trails in Hoffma Nature Preserve with as many as 4 friends when, passing a float bridge near the center of the preserve, they heard a sound to their right. Ben spied what resembled a dog standing behind a tree on a ridge above, approximately 70 feet away. I thought it was just a dog walking along, then it stood up on its hind legs, Ben states. One of its feet gripped a branch on the tree. Our eyes met and we just stared at each other for about 5 minutes and it ran off. According to Ben, the second encounter occurred in December that same year in the driveway of his family's home on Lake Shore Drive. Ben went outdoors in the cold to start his mom's car. I only made it as far as the front bumper of the car, he states. The creature then rose up from behind the vehicle. It stood up on its hind legs. It had yellow eyes. He explained, "I'm 6'8", and it was staring down at me. I froze and began crying. The creature took 3 incredible leaps and disappeared into the brush as Ben's family rushed out to the driveway. According to Ben, his third encounter with the creature took place in 1994. When he and his cousin were walking after dark in the direction of the beach from Lakeshore Drive along the edge of the dunes. As they watched a deer standing in the clearing, an enormous dog-like creature rapidly snatched the animal and carried it off into the brush. We went down to the spot, and you could see where the deer tracks ended, Ben said. They vanished, leaving only tracks from that thing. There is also a tale that in the early 1994, a car on Lakeshore Drive was involved with a collision with a large animal. It is said that the occupants of the vehicle were uninjured and the police department determined that it was a deer strike. The tale includes a witness that claimed gray fur covered the grille of the wrecked vehicle, but no blood or animal carcass was found. It was said that the driver could not explain what he hit. Quick interjection. I actually was looking through my encounters. I pretty much save every encounter that I've ever narrated because I narrated that encounter. And what happened was this guy was going home and he was kind of rounding onto the road, just taking it wasn't a sharp curve, it was more like a cul-de-sac curve. And as he came around the corner, this creature just ran in front of him and he hit it. From how and what he described, he definitely hit a dogman that night. The creature seemed stunned, but got up and ran in the opposite direction. I really looked for almost 45 minutes to just share that encounter with this one, but I couldn't find it, so I apologize, just going off the top of my head with the memory of it. This encounter actually should have been in or shared with yesterday's bizarre encounters, so on with the third encounter of the day. Ohio, west of Washington Courthouse. It was roughly around midnight. There was a full moon that lit much of the area close to where I had set up to fish. About an hour after fishing, I heard this loud rustling noise come from the brush across from me on the other bank. I stood up and shined my flashlight up and down the side of the bank. That was when I heard a low grunt that was followed by heavy stomping toward the bridge. I climbed up to the road where I had parked my car when this creature stepped out onto the center of the road into the moonlight. The creature stood close to 8 feet tall. It was wearing rough animal skins with a sinewed belt with skulls tied to it. The skins it was wearing appeared to have moss coating it. Its skin was scaly and had thick, matted hair on its head. When I shined my flashlight on it, it let out a deep, low growl, followed by a roar, after which it went crashing through the trees along the other side of the road. I left as soon as I could get my stuff loaded into the car, and never went back to that area again, though I had heard from friends who hunted the woods close to that area of having their trail cams broken with no other evidence of what had happened to them. The creature had small and mid-sized animal skulls, and it had been raining the day before the sighting, so the scales could have been mud matted on its fur, which covered the majority of its body. The area in which I was fishing was a creek not far from a cemetery, just up the road in the woods. The light from the spotlight seemed to really anger it, because it was then that it gave out that deep-barreled chested roar, and then began running through the trees, breaking branches as it went. Now, it's rare, but not unheard of, that an alleged Bigfoot is reported wearing something. A quick Google search brought up the topic on Sasquatch Chronicle blog with a wealth of reports. 1947, Grouse Mountain, North Vancouver, British Columbia, driving along a logging road, a witness came upon 2 tall beings with a deerskin wrapped around them, Mr. and Mrs. Warner reported. 2004, June, High Uintas, Utah. One man claims to have seen a Bigfoot in the High Uintas. Shortly after, he spots 3 tall, 7-foot or more men in monk-like robes. February 26, 1971, Lawton, Oklahoma, roughly 11 p.m. A C. Edward Green and his wife were driving home along Lake Avenue when they saw a strange figure walking beside the road. He was bent over like a gorilla, Green recalled, not long after in the interview with Source, but not on all fours. He wore black pants that were cut or torn at the knees, and he had a big beard. It began higher up in his face than beards usually do. The hair was long and unkempt. When the Greens reached their apartment shortly after seeing the strange creature, they called the police. They assumed it had been a mentally disturbed person. When he saw me, he jumped to the gravel below. Now, that's about a 15-foot jump. But it didn't seem to bother him. He must have been very strong. I did not stay to watch him run away. Just before this experience at the window, a group of passerbys had seen a monkey-like figure running down the street, not far away, dodging cars, hiding behind bushes, and then running. In 1971, Putnam, Florida, 2 in the morning. We were driving back from Crescent Beach at night. It was a foggy night around 2 a.m. My friend was driving when he had to swerve to miss this sink standing in the lane we were in. It was standing about 3 feet in the lane, about 6'6" to 7 feet tall, long arms, very hairy, resembling a man more than an animal. It had dirty, torn clothes and around 270 or more pounds. The thing looked like it could pick up the car. The face looked like a male, standing relaxed with shoulders dropped. It looked savage-looking, like a caveman face. My buddy was scared and would not turn around. I was kind of scared but wanted to see it again, but he was driving the car and wouldn't stop. Paul Peters watched a bushman along the Yukon River near Ruby, Alaska in the fall of 1960. It was walking along a very rocky beach toward his dogs, which were whining and acting strangely. The bushman was very muscular, covered in black hair, and about 6.5 feet tall. John Batiste saw a man-like creature with a long dark beard near Fort Leonard, Northwest Territories, in April of '64. It uttered a wild growl and fled, leaving tracks. The following month, an Indian woman saw the same wild man, and in June outside of Fort Simpson, a 14-year-old boy and his father saw a small dark creature with a long beard who carried a stone club and wore a piece of moose skin around his waist. And finally, Patty Nolnar and 6 other villagers in Nulato, Alaska, encountered a bushman in 1970 along the Koyuk River, about 20 miles north of its confluence with the Yukon. They didn't see it, but it threw a rock at them as they were resting around their campfire. So, quick interjection, it's rare but not unheard of that these creatures act more human than we believe. It's definitely our human customs to wear clothes. Otherwise, it'd be pretty weird if we were all just walking around naked. The first one where this creature was obviously huge, fur matted all over, matted mud in its fur, wearing skulls. It was, maybe that was some sort of hunter. I don't know. But throughout the years that I've been researching and talking with people, and I share, my beliefs and about like the Native Americans and these creatures, whether it be Dogman, Bigfoot, I think Bigfoot more though, that they are more human than, not more human than animal, but I think that because Native Americans and the Sasquatch-like creature had a lot of interaction, I think there was some sort of treaty where they did not fight, otherwise the Bigfoot would just wipe them all out. I think that the Sasquatch just started watching the Native Americans and kind of taking on some of these little traditions, like, using hides, collecting souvenirs after a kill. So, I don't know. That's just one of my theories, but this third part of the upload kind of cements it for me. I don't know. What do you guys think? Moving on. Today's fourth part of the upload is a bizarre one as well. My dad used to haul stuff all around the woods of northwest Ohio. He always told me stories about things he had seen. One night he was driving, going about 65, when a gray-colored thing ran past his truck. So that means it was going well over 65. And he says it was some kind of animal. I asked if it was a cougar, and he said no, that it was not cat-like, rather wolf-like. Leave it at that, and it's still creepy, an oversized wolf running fast. Sorry, I didn't know how fast they could run, but I believe it's usually faster than normal. But it only gets weirder from there. He says he definitely remembers it running on 2 legs. What the hell kind of animal looks like a wolf, runs on 2 legs, and runs faster than 65 miles an hour? He says he was tired when it happened, but it's still very creepy, and he probably tells himself that not to scare himself. I don't know what to make of it, although I've never really read up on it, but I still wonder what kind of thing he could have seen that night. This is another little creepy story that he told me. He was driving fast with a bunch of his friends down River Road in Tiffin, Ohio. Many people have died on this road, and if you look it up, you might find some stuff. He says he saw some kind of light up ahead on the side of the road, so he slowed down a bit. He and his 3 friends looked over to see an older man in overalls walking through the woods. I don't know the specifics, I just know it was in the middle of nowhere, and that he was holding a lantern. This was about 2 in the morning. This isn't really chilling, but I just wonder what this man was doing out there so late. My dad says that he thinks someone was burying a body. He thinks of that man. I just know on the road many people have seen ghosts. I wonder if he was one. Years before this, still in Northwest Ohio, he lived in a trailer park on a little lot with a trailer on it. Meeting his neighbors and just knowing the area, he found out that every single trailer ever put on that lot had burned to the ground. Kind of sounds like a weird curse, but he's not lying. The park doesn't even open that lot to people anymore because of it. When he was in the living room with a bunch of his friends, so not just him experienced it, randomly his kitchen table, made of completely metal, caught on fire. Not a little spark, like randomly igniting flames, burnt a huge hole in the middle of the table. Freaked him out for a while. His lights would flicker. That could have just been electrical issues. He was a tractor-trailer driver. When he left for work, he would leave the outside light on with all the rest of the lights off. He would walk into the end of the driveway and look back, and the outdoor lights would be off and the bathroom light would be on. He would walk back only to see that the actual switch had been flipped, so it was not an electrical issue. This happened every single time he left, and his friends witnessed all of these things happen. Finally, one night he and his friends were drinking, and when they got up in the morning sober, all the bottles were stacked in a triangle on the counter. That could just be his friends messing with him, but not the rest. He also would see things in his bathroom mirror. He says that the place was evil. Some spirits are not harmful, but he felt very unwelcomed there. My dad slept on the couch, but his roommate slept in the back bedroom and told him that he felt like something was pushing him down in the bed. A year after he left the place, it burnt to the ground. Today's 5th and final encounter. I was born and raised in Pottstown, PA, and currently still live there. The sighting was an hour west of Philly and a half an hour away from Valley Forge. I've had 2 experiences where I've seen things that I cannot explain. I'll start with the most recent. Last year, a friend and I went for a ride to catch up with our friend. It was March of 2020 on a Saturday night, and it just so happened to be the weekend when the quarantine had started. We were on Route 422 around midnight, and it was odd because the highway usually pretty busy on a Saturday night. But that night we saw maybe 3 cars within the 30-minute ride. So we finished visiting our friend and started to make our way back home. It was around 2:30, 3 o'clock, and we started going westbound on 422. And again, we were pretty much the only car on the road. There's a grass patch that divides the east and westbound of the highway, and we're in the fast lane between Collegeville and Royceford exit, when all of a sudden we passed something to the left of us in the grass. We couldn't see it until we were right up on it, and only could catch a glimpse of it for a second. This thing looked like it was on all fours, maybe eating roadkill or something, but unfortunately, I could only see it from its waist or hips down. It was much bigger than a deer, and had longer, unkept, straggly, orangish, reddish fur. kind of like the color of a red fox, but a little lighter in color. What really gets me was the legs on this thing. It had canine-like legs, but they were huge and muscular. It just had that shape that instantly told me this thing was not something you wanted to mess with. The legs looked like drawings I've seen of werewolves or something evil. Something told me that this thing could walk on two legs as well. After we passed it, I asked my friend who was driving, "Did you see that?" He replied, "Yeah." I asked him, "What was it?" He replied, "I don't know." Neither of us brought it up again during the ride because I think we were just trying to process what the hell we saw and didn't want to sound crazy. When I got home, I told my boyfriend about it, and he has no idea what kind of animal that lives around here it could have been. Next time I saw my friend who had been driving that night, we both agreed that whatever we saw does not fit any description of any animal in this area, and that it was scary looking. He calls it the beast. So, a couple of months later, another friend was leaving my house and heard something across the street making a low guttural growling noise, which scared him straight to his car and out of there. He was an animal control officer for years and said nothing around here would make that noise. Then, about a month after that, my boyfriend was taking out the trash. When he got to the front door, he heard something scratching at the door and sniffing loudly. He said it sounded like a pig grunting, but obviously it wasn't a pig. This past October, my friend was sitting in his car in my driveway waiting for me to come outside. I noticed his doors were locked when I went to get in the car. He said he heard something that sounded like a human, but didn't know what it was, and it scared him. Once I got in the car, I told him everything I had just stated here, and ended my story saying, "A few months ago I saw something on Route 422, and before I could say anything else, he said, 'I saw it too.' So I asked what color it was, and he described the exact same color. Then he said, when I saw it, it was running on two legs across the highway, and once it saw my car, it took off really fast, like nothing around here would be able to. My heart was beating so hard listening to him tell me this, because I know he wasn't making it up. I was glad someone else had seen this thing. He doesn't know what it was, but he said it was about 7 to 8 feet tall, and looked nefarious. He agreed that its legs looked evil. He saw it around the same time of year as me, and it was about the same time of night as well. I drive this highway all the time and look for it every time, but haven't seen it since. That's about it. I always wonder if any other people saw this thing and what the hell it is." All right, folks, I hope you all enjoyed this bonus as much as I enjoyed sharing it with you. I hope to see you all at tonight's live stream, 12 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Saturday Nightmares, live from New York. It's a fun time. It really is. Share a lot of experiences and just really totally different than any other live stream in the cryptid community, I believe. So with that being said, thank you for supporting the channel. Your support is what keeps the channel growing and going, and honestly what gives people a chance and a place to share their experiences and theories judgment-free, just simply treated with the respect we all deserve. Thank you. Everyone stay safe, happy, healthy, and ever vigilant, keeping an eye on our children, pets, family, and friends. These creatures are real. They are out there and dangerous. Share this information with the people you love and care about, and it may just help save their lives someday. Until next time, never stop asking questions, never stop searching for the truth, and God bless.